Alright, so real quick removal of the door panels. I'm going to start off flipping this guy out. Now that's a Torx, but I found that a number 4, because from the factory they don't really tighten it. So number 4 Allen will pull that out. So you'll remove that. Then down here next to the door handle, just pull it out, get in there with a little flat blade, and try not to drop it. And it should pop right out. So what you're dealing with are just some pop tabs. I found that it's easier to put the flat blade at the top than at the bottom. So with that, you just have some screws along the bottom. You're going to have that one, and then the one that you just exposed. And then the last one is going to be up front. So remove those with a number 7 Allen. So here's what you'll have left as far as parts whenever you pull it out. We'll have the tab. So to remove the tweeter pod, there's just 3 clips. So you'll pull straight up, and then once you've gotten the pod out, then you can disconnect the tweeter cable, and the tweeter itself just clips into the pod, so it may come out with it. It won't go through, so don't try to pull that. You'll just have to have 2 people, one person hold the door panel preferably, and the other person disconnect from the tweeter. And then from that point, you're just going to use a ratchet to get the hex bolts, and then the speaker will just pop down. It's lightly glued, so if you just pull on it lightly, it'll come right out. Now what I do is I reuse the factory adapter. So what I'll first do is pull out the shiny ring, which is on the front, and then reuse that foam at a later point, which I'll show in the video. So the first thing is you just take a flat blade, get it between those 2, and there's just a little bit of glue holding it on, not much. So just work your way around. And I probably should have used this slightly bigger flat blade, but this will work. Alright. Now what I do is I'll reuse this foam, and I'll put it along here whenever I put the new speaker in. So at this point, you're basically just going to rip the speaker out. So then now you've exposed this bracket. Now I've got Hertz 6.5 speakers, 6.5 inch speakers with steel baskets, and so I'm going to cut this part out, and then once I file this part out and make it smooth, the basket drops right in. It's pretty tight. Everybody has their own favorite way of pulling out plastic or modifying. So the way that I typically do it is with tin snips, if I can, if it's a big flat area. A Dremel, sometimes with a drill bit, if I need to get into fine spots, or in this case, a cutting wheel seems to do just fine. And I use that to clean it up. The first thing I'm going to do is just cut out these little reinforcing pillars. Then, once you got all the reinforcements cut out, you can take this and send it where it rightfully belongs. And so with the rounded file, and seriously not even maybe 15 minutes of work, just your 6.5 will fit perfect. So at this point, what I do in the car is I'll put it into the door. It'll be roughly at this angle, or actually that's the passenger, so maybe it'll be at this angle. And then what I'll do is I'll mark holes right here to line up, and then I'm a stickler enough that I'll make it where the Hertz is directly at the bottom. But so then what I'll do is take a like a 3/16 drill bit, and then on the inside of this lip where I marked where the screw is, I'll pre-drill a hole right here, and then I'll even put a screw through it, all 4 spots. And then when you put the speaker in, it's a lot easier to screw it in. You're not going to slip with the screwdriver and take out your driver. And there we go. It's all mounted up. Looks pretty good. I marked where the holes were, then pre-drilled them, and then put the speaker in. And then I stole the foam from the trim plate like I'd mentioned, and it's between the gray basket and the black piece that you see there. So at this point, the bottom part will just snap into the door, screw into the top, and you've got factory foam in there to help deaden it. And it's quite solid, and then of course it's going to have Dynamat applied on top of it. So that part's good to go. And then I did see one post where somebody asked about the clearance. So you can see with it mounted on the top that there's almost nothing extruding beyond that adapter. And then if you look inside the door, it's nighttime right now, so I'll finish this video up in the morning, but there's a huge amount of space behind it. It's probably at least a good 3 to 4 inches, and the window doesn't go far enough to be behind this speaker. It's probably about 3 or 4 inches above it, and later on in the video, whenever I do the Dynamat, you'll see that. So given that's at least a good, I don't know, I'd say 4 inches, I'd say that for your mids you have at least a good 6.5, if not 8.5. Alright, so this is the tweeter assembly, or tweeter pod disassembled. So this is the base, which has a screw that goes through it and attaches it to the front part, which is what you see inside. So basically, with the HSK 165, you're going to get this tweeter bracket. And in effect, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop off one side. The other side I'm going to chop just after the hole. And then what that's going to do is it's going to bolt up to that screw just below my thumb in the camera. And that'll hold the tweeter. Now, as you can see, after I've brought it down, I've chopped off that side and brought that side down. It doesn't quite fit. There's a tab to the right of the screw hole there, And then if you look at it, you can see that it physically extrudes beyond the outside of the pod. So next what I'll have to do is chop the back. And actually, if you're familiar with this kit, this is backwards. Normally the tweeter slips in this way. So by chopping it, I'll be able to flip it and then have the tweeter. Because if you try to force it, the way that the tweeter is constructed, the wires are awfully close to the outside. So as you're trying to shove it, you'll notice that they've got like liquid electrical tape around the electrodes to keep it from shorting out. And if you physically try to force it in there, you'll start to peel off that protective layer. Since most of our doors are plastic anyway, it's not a huge deal. But generally try to preserve what the factory's done. And if you've got a dealer who's a pain in the ass, they might try to say that your warranty is void if your tweeter ever goes bad. So with that, I'm going to hack off the back of this. Alright, well, it's not the prettiest, but so what I've done is I've elongated the hole and then notched it at the top there. You'll see why here in a second. I've cut back up here most of the back part of it, and then there used to be a lip all the way around it, and so what I've done is I've taken that lip off. So there's a tab, I don't know if you can see it very well right there, and so that notch that I've made in the tab will fit in to that little piece, and maybe I could Dremel that out as well, but I don't really think that I needed to. So the whole thing is basically just to sandwich the tweeter in there. There's a foam block, and so as that screw tightens, it's going to bring this adapter back, and it's going to hold the tweeter in place. And then in the front, you'll have the grill. I've already done this on the passenger side and been driving around for a couple of days. There's no rattles, and it's positioned where the sound is going across and hitting the other side as it should for imaging. So this is a mock-up, and I'll put it together. And there you go. That's the finished product. So it protrudes a little bit out of the bottom, which is fine because there's an opening in the door panel. It's inside, and no rattle. So when you're driving around, and it's going to be aimed across. Alright, so once you pull the door panel off, you've got this stuff. It's held on by some gooey adhesive that goes all the way across. Lift this up. And I'm just going to clamp that in place for now. So what I'm going to do is cut some pieces and stick them inside this channel. I'm not going to do the entire inside door shell, but we'll end up doing a majority of the of this side, the side that the panel's directly on top of. Alright, so the back's around 12 inches inside the channel, and at the front it's about 9 inches. So I'm going to cut a piece that's 9, and it'll expand out to about 12. Alright, so it's 9 inches at the front, 12 inches at the back, and I'm going to put it right inside there and then slide it all the way to the front. So put the crossover in the door. Ran the wires along the same channel. It's not the prettiest job, but it works.